If you look at your life and feel like nothing ever fully closes, you don't feel lazy, you feel unfinished. Projects linger instead of ending. Skills accumulate without forming a single title. Interests arrive intensely, then fade, leaving behind traces rather than trophies. And beneath all of it, there's a quiet fear that something is wrong with you. You notice how easily other people settle into lanes while you keep drifting across them. They pick a path, double down, and slowly become recognizable. You, on the other hand, remain difficult to explain, even to yourself. There's a subtle shame that comes with that. Not loud shame, but the kind that shows up when someone asks what you do and you hesitate. You give a long answer instead of a clean one. You feel the need to justify your interests before anyone criticizes them. And over time, you internalize the idea that depth only counts if it's narrow. That belief didn't come from nowhere. You were trained to see focus as maturity and curiosity as distraction. You were taught that progress means staying put long enough for others to recognize you. So when your attention moves, you assume it's a failure of discipline. But what if it isn't? What if the discomfort you feel isn't because you lack direction, but because you've been trying to compress yourself into a shape that doesn't fit? Psychology doesn't frame this pattern as a flaw. It frames it as adaptation. Some nervous systems are built to specialize deeply in one stable environment. Others are built to scan, connect, and reorganize across changing conditions. The problem is that modern culture only rewards one of those patterns publicly. So if you don't fit it, you grow up feeling like an exception instead of a design. Historically, specialization made sense because the world changed slowly. Skills lasted decades, industry stayed intact, effort compounded predictably. But your brain is not responding to the past, it's responding to instability. When environments become volatile, rigid specialization becomes fragile, and something in you knows that intuitively. That's why your attention doesn't stay put. That's why your interests rotate. That's why you collect experiences instead of credentials. It isn't chaos, it's reconnaissance. You're not failing to commit, you're gathering information across domains, even when you don't know why yet. Psychology calls this far transfer. It's the ability to carry insight from one field into another without obvious overlap. It's how innovation actually happens, not how it's marketed. But far transfer doesn't look impressive in real time. It looks inefficient, it looks scattered, it looks like wasted potential if you're judging yourself with the wrong metric. That's where the anxiety comes from. You aren't behind in life, you're mismeasured. And the longer you compare yourself to people with a different cognitive architecture, the worse that gap feels. This creates a specific kind of burnout. Not the burnout of doing too much, but the burnout of never being able to point to a finished self. You see others stabilizing into identities while yours stays fluid. And fluidity, in a culture obsessed with certainty, feels dangerous. So you try to force focus. You pick something and promise this time will be different. You suppress curiosity instead of understanding it. You tell yourself to stop drifting. And when that fails, the shame deepens. But here's the part no one tells you. Trying to force a polymorphic mind into a singular identity creates more instability, not less. Because you aren't meant to build everything at once. You're meant to build in sequence. This is where most people misunderstand themselves. They assume all interests must converge immediately to be valid. So they juggle too many pillars at once and collapse under the weight. But that isn't how this mind is designed to function. The structure isn't a straight line. It's an M. Multiple pillars of depth connected by time, not simultaneity. Each obsession is a season of construction. When the season ends, the structure remains, even if the attention moves on. Nothing is lost. It just goes dormant until it's needed. But because society only rewards continuous visibility, dormancy gets mislabeled as failure. That mislabeling is costly. It convinces you to abandon skills prematurely. It pressures you to merge identities before they're ready. It creates the illusion that others are progressing while you're restarting. In reality, you're layering, and layering doesn't look impressive until suddenly it does. This is why people like you often feel behind until they abruptly feel ahead, not because they caught up, but because synthesis finally becomes visible. There's another reason this pattern exists, and it's older than culture. In biology, redundancy isn't inefficiency, it's survival. Systems with multiple backups endure shock better than systems optimized for one outcome. Your range of skills, interests, and partial competencies function the same way. They create optionality. They create resilience. They create a safety net that doesn't rely on any single identity holding forever. That's why forcing yourself to choose one thing feels suffocating. It's not just psychological discomfort, it's a threat response. Your system resists narrowing because narrowing increases vulnerability in an unpredictable world. And deep down, you know that. But knowing this intellectually doesn't erase the emotional cost. You still feel the pressure of timelines. You still compare yourself to peers who look settled. You still feel the urge to justify your path. That urge comes from mistaking visibility for validity. Your progress doesn't announce itself loudly. It integrates quietly, often long after the work was done. That delay is psychologically brutal if you don't understand it. It makes you doubt your instincts. It makes you chase clarity instead of allowing it to emerge. And the more you chase, the more fragmented you feel. The shift happens when you stop asking, "What should I commit to?" and start asking, "What season am I in?" Seasons have boundaries without demanding permanence. They allow intensity without lifelong contracts. They let you go deep without pretending it's forever. This reframes your past completely. Those weren't abandoned interests, they were completed cycles. Those weren't failures, they were infrastructure. And the version of you that feels scattered now might simply be between pillars. That space feels empty because nothing is visible yet, but emptiness isn't absence, it's transition. The danger isn't your multiplicity. The danger is letting shame convince you to amputate it. Because once you do, you lose the very thing that makes you adaptable. You lose the bridge between worlds that others never cross, and you spend years trying to become legible instead of effective. The real question isn't whether you should change, it's whether you should stop trying to simplify yourself for systems that weren't built for you. Because the future doesn't reward purity, it rewards synthesis. And people like you aren't behind, you're early. The only risk now is forgetting that while you wait for the world to catch up. So ask yourself this quietly. What would happen if you stopped apologizing for how your mind moves? And what kind of life could you build if you trusted that movement instead of fighting it?